And we
We
are
are live.
live. Coming to you on your TV sets in Texas and Louisiana from Washington, D.C. and Dublin. And of course, Matt will join us in a few minutes from Dubai. But I'll tell you what, we love doing the show every morning, being on your TV sets and streaming around the world. Sir David Porter, there's a lot going on today. How are you?
Yep, doing well. What do you see going on? Any news lately? I haven't heard
Well,
much.
there's lots of news. I will say one of the most interesting things to me, for whatever reason, it's Imran Khan is his
Oh,
party in Pakistan is leading, and Imran Khan is in jail, and they
insane.
just extended his jail term by 6 years, but he's like the people's president. And I don't want to get
Yeah.
anybody upset. I'm not totally. I'm not totally versed on Pakistan politics. He appears to me to be a very popular political figure that is in jail. And anytime Pakistan and our CIA and the Mossad and
Right.
everybody else, they get all involved in everybody's stuff, and they don't like him. So I figure he must be good.
That happens quite often.
Because that's usually how we roll, right? Sadly enough, but pretty interesting. So that's I think that's really interesting. Of course, Bitcoin is on a great tear. Bitcoin's up a lot, really catching the wind from the quantitative easing, the printing of money, the money injection from China. They printed up a lot more of their paper money, their fiat currencies. And then as well, the Bank of Japan came out and the central bank there and said they're going to keep interest rates. Basically, I think the interest rates right now are negative. So they're going to keep them negative for a while, no aggressive moves up. And so that money flows very easily into crypto. So you can see the Asian stock markets are continuing to be up, although the Hang Seng, which is the Hong Kong market, which is the big market really for China, has been pulling back for the last couple of days, which is I guess it's fairly interesting. I think. I mean, so it was down about 1.5 yesterday, down about a point today. So, as much as China puts this money into the market, of course, the rooster comes home or whatever they say to hatch. I don't know, whatever that saying is. The money is. It's they're just taking it from the people and pushing it out into the market, and then a lot of that money, as we see, flowing into crypto. And so I don't know if that was their desired outcome or not, but a lot of that money is flowing into crypto. Now they have made it. I think it's illegal to short the market in China, so you can't do a short. You just have to long. That's all you could do. Matt, he wouldn't like that. You got to be able to short and long. You got to be able to sell too. You can't just long the market. He used to tell me, anybody can just long the market.
You're right. I mean, the game goes both ways. So
the game goes both
yourself.
ways. You want to be able to make money both ways. That's for sure. We need to add a new URL. It's @costbitcoin, @costbitcoin.club. Follow that link. Join KuCoin. KuCoin is open for everybody, even in Texas and Louisiana. You can get real Bitcoins. You can get real crypto, not the fake paper ETFs. You can get real Bitcoins on KuCoin, and it is open for Americans. You can go to @costbitcoin.club and that /referral link. So pretty interesting day. Of course, we have a lot of other stuff going on. That interview with Putin. I mean, the Tucker Carlson interview with Putin, I think it's a 2-hour interview. I got out of Annie rehearsal last night. Of course, like God knows, yeah, I'm on a pretty tight schedule here between Annie, which is pretty funny, but really fun to do with my daughters. I mean, just really, really fun to do with my daughters, I have to say. I don't know if I'll ever have another opportunity to do a play with my daughters. I mean, maybe I will. I don't know. But we get back on the road and we're traveling around and stuff. And, here I am. I kind of over Christmas, I said, all right, let's do it. And I've already had to turn down a few speaking deals, of course, but it's been really, really special. And I have actually a cast picture I'm going to try to pull up here. Let me just try to send that to myself. My wife took it last night, but having a lot of fun. But anyway, so I didn't really get to watch the whole thing, but or the whole thing, even much of it. But I'll tell you one thing that a big takeaway on that interview.
You're talking about Putin and Tucker Carlson?
Yeah. Is that Vladimir Putin is a really smart guy. And, it was like rapid fire. It's like an interesting thing. That's what Trump did. That was so interesting. And it was so nice to have in politics because, these guys are shifty guys. You know what I mean? I mean, these are shady characters. Let's face it. I mean, you don't go into politics these days, for the right reasons usually, or even if you do start for the right reasons, it ends up being, I don't know. You know what I mean? So that was one thing that was really nice about what Trump would do is he would get out there and he would just answer questions. He'd get up on the podium and kind of do what we do every morning, right? Or every day, twice a day. We get on and we answer questions and we talk to people. And that's nice. I'll have to say that is nice. So he sat down there for 2 hours and Tucker asked him pretty much whatever he wants. I mean, that's kind of Tucker's style. He just does Tucker and he gets away with it. He got away with it on Fox. He said that Fox News never asked him not to do things, not to ask questions. He said he would feel it. He would feel the pressure.
Yeah.
He would feel them when they were unhappy.
They would see the view counts and not stop them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, who knows? They probably just figured that he was, one of those guys that they couldn't really control like that. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, he, so that was pretty nice. And again, I didn't get to watch the whole thing at all. I put some clips out last night before I went to sleep. I think I put out one earlier of him joking with him. I guess Tucker Carlson wanted to be in the CIA, and Vladimir, he is a ex KGB, so I'm sure that their intelligence apparatus is very good, like ours. And he kind of laughing at him. Scott, thank God that you didn't get in. He said, "Thank God you didn't get in." Anyway, before we get on to some of that stuff, I wanted to share. This is me with the cast last night, the Annie cast. If you guys are in Old Town, Virginia, you should come see the play if there's still some tickets. I don't know if there's tickets anymore. Here we go. Here we are. Can you see this?
Yes.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah. Whoops. I didn't want to go that close. Yes. So they have two casts. They have the red cast and the blue cast because the kids, we're doing like 20 shows or something. I mean, really funny, guys. I haven't done a play in, like 30 years or something. Not quite 30 years, probably 25 years or something. I have to say it's been pretty fun. It is fun. And I can sing, I can sing. I harmonize. Is this the live for the beginning, guys? Oh, whatever, man. Funny comment. I guess I could put that up on the screen, huh? Mr. Funny Guy. Hey, man, we're not all lighting the loafers here in the theater, okay? Now, I can't speak for all of them. That's for sure. But anyhow, but no, it's a lot of fun. I am having an absolute blast. I definitely recommend it. If you get a chance to do some plays with your kids, I think you should do it. I think you should have kids. I think you should have a family. David and I are big proponents of that. You should have kids. You should have a family, and then you should do things with them. So that's one of the things that's keeping me busy on my toes here. And I think, though, that things will really start to take off here. So, all right. So this is pretty funny here. I'm going to now switch my screen here, and we're going to follow. We've been following our new kind of path here. So we start off a few minutes past the hour, and then we'll go to commercials on in Texas, Louisiana in a couple of minutes, and then we'll bring on Matt after the commercial break and talk more about that stuff. It keeps us tight. I think that's the best way. And then the last part we can use for interviews and stuff like that, or just talking about.
Although
This is the
it
clip
is
I was talking about. This is funny.
with the backing of CIA, of course, the organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand. We should thank God they didn't let you in. Although it is a serious. With the backing of CIA, of course. I understand. My former. With the backing of CIA.
Oh, this is what I was talking about. Imran Khan's party takes the commanding lead in the Pakistan elections. I mean, I just think, hey, look, Trump might be in jail for this. I mean, I hope it's not, but I mean, we might be in the same situation, guys. Platinum is down about 0.5%. Make sure to join at costmetals.club. You can buy metals at cost by using our referral link there at costmetals.club. Silver is up 0.25%, trading at 22.69. Gold is flat, holding its value there at 2,046. If you use that link at costmetals.club, that will forward you to our referral link. You can have the gold, silver, palladium, platinum delivered right to your door. One of our people here on the net asked, what is a Bitcoin? He said, what is a Bitcoin? And how is it stored? And where is it stored? And I said, Bitcoins are made up of bits of computer code. There is a finite amount that exists on millions of computers around the world. They are currently impossible to counterfeit, freeze, seize, or stop. If properly secured, or stored, I could say, only the owner can access them by entering his private keys. It's the first time in the history of the world that we've ever had anything like this before. It is new to the world, and that's what people need to understand. So I'm going to lead us into the commercials here on Smart Money Culture TV. We want to thank you guys for joining us. We're going to come back right after the commercial break, and we will have Matt Dixon with the markets for you. More of the markets. XRP is up 1 1/3 with heavy trading. Owning Ripple is easy, even for Americans on KuCoin. Follow the referral link at costbitcoin.club. So we have at costmetals.club to get precious metals, and we have at costbitcoin.club to get all types of different crypto. Okay. Solana up over 3%. Solana, one of the favorites of everybody. I don't know what that's supposed to be there. I gotta zoom out of that trending, whatever that trending was. Ethereum is up 1.62%, currently trading at 24.63. Bitcoin on a tear, really. 46,642. Oops. Let me just, as I'm talking here, look at the live price. 750. Look at that. So even going higher. Now, if you remember, Matt had this charted to go up to 49.9 and then a pullback. So it'll be interesting to see if that original target will be there. So still a ways to go. Always scary once it gets up here, though, to go in, because you're near the top before what's probably going to be a pullback. Hard to say, though. A lot of macro situations end up playing in. It really is hard to say what will happen. Litecoin is up 2.5%, trading at $70.46. I still think that's a steal, guys. I think Litecoin should be $1,000, but hey, what do I know? I thought it should be $1,000 a long time ago. Litecoin is accepted everywhere Bitcoin is accepted. Everywhere that Bitcoin is accepted, Litecoin is accepted. Litecoin is the right coin, as they say. I'm a big fan. Tesla, I thought this was interesting. Tesla continues to rise in pre-market trading. Of course, the great Elon Musk. NASDAQ futures are up about 0.25%. Dow futures are flat. This futures indicator that I've been using for years has been a little funny these days. I think that we have so much market manipulation that it's not as organic as it used to be, and it's hard to get a really good read on it. Did I play this yesterday? The shark saving his buddy? This is worth a watch.
A tiger shark hunting. But instead,
I don't know if this is true.
a huge tiger shark is pushing a 100-year-old sea turtle. You might think this is a tiger shark hunting, but instead, the tiger shark pushes the turtle to the side of the boat, and then it's giving the turtle to a human. The people on the boat could hardly believe what was happening. When they picked up the turtle, they were dumbfounded. Then they took the turtle to a sea animal rescue boat, not far away. The rescuers picked up the turtle. They can see that the turtle is wrapped in a bunch of finger-thick ropes. The rescuers first use a knife to cut the rope that was wrapped directly around the turtle. Look at this piece of rope. I don't know how the turtle got tangled up in it, but it doesn't end there. This is just the beginning. Take a closer look. The turtle's neck is wrapped around the rope several times. A slight touch. The turtle's head shrinks in pain. Rescuers try to get the turtle to stick its head out, but it kept resisting. I believe if it wasn't for the pain, it wouldn't be like this. The turtle doesn't know what's happening in front of him. It doesn't move. The turtle is actually shedding tears. Maybe the pain is too much for him. The rescuers come and try to calm him down. Turtle, and then the tears stopped. Rescuers turn the turtle over. There's like a necklace around the turtle's neck. It looks like a shackle, and a lethal one at that. The turtle seems to realize that these people are trying to save him, and it's not moving anymore. You can see the turtle's neck has turned pink. If it doesn't get help, if it's not rescued, it's going to die. The rescuers use their knives to cut the ropes around the turtle's neck. The rope around the turtle's neck. As soon as they move the ropes, they touch the turtle's wounds. It starts to struggle again. It's a good thing the ropes are free. Look at the turtle's neck. The edges of the wound have become seriously infected. The turtle is in pain and crying again. The rescuers put medicine on the gauze to disinfect the turtle's wound. The turtle has calmed down. Next, we're treating the front wound. You can see that the rope has opened up the turtle's skin. See this? I hope you can give a little red heart to these kind rescuers. After disinfecting the turtle's wounds several times, the rescuers put it back into the sea.
Lucky turtle.
Oh, isn't it just such a nice, heartening story? I know. I don't know if it's true or not, but everyone loved it on X. Sir Matt Dixon, how are you?
Hi, much better today. Thank you. Pleased to be here again.
Like you're just lightening up every day. In the last 3 days, every day you're looking better.
Let's hope that turtle lives another 100 and however many years. It's an amazing story.
Isn't it a great story? Everyone loved
Absolutely,
it. A lot of people thought it was great. And they said, well, the boat is different on the first one than the second one, but it says that in the story. They took it over to the rescue. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? But anyway, nice story.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and share screen if that's okay. Pretty much straight away. And I'm assuming you can see my chart there.
Yes. Empirical literature.
So we're going to jump around a little bit. We'll look a little bit at the US economy and how sustainable things may or may not be. This is actually just looking at the how big the deficit is as compared with GDP. And you can see there's a shortfall, basically, that the revenue is less than the spending. And so we have a shortfall of 5.5%. And this deficit is basically funded out of borrowing. So it's interesting because we need to understand how sustainable it is. And empirical literature says that deficits above 5% of GDP are unsustainable in the long run. But what we do need to take into account is that a lot of people actually discount what the government itself holds in debt. As you know, the government buys its own debt with the QE program that they have. So I've looked into this in a bit more detail, and it looks as though potentially the debt to GDP is sustainable for the time being. So although there's a terrible, terrible debt situation, the debt just keeps growing and growing, but bear in mind as well that GDP is also growing. And that's why long term, these figures aren't particularly concerning. Although, you know, when we see these debt figures, you know, looking at, you know, total borrowings, is it 34 trillion or something nowadays. It's the sort of eye-watering, mind-boggling figures. But don't forget, the economy is continuing to grow, and that's what's making it potentially sustainable. We're talking about this could potentially continue for some time to come, but there are other warning signs out there, and this is looking at the federal government current expenditures and comparing it with, well, it's actually showing times of recession. And you can see, obviously, during 2020, they spent a lot of money, the government, trying to stimulate the economy. And we had a very mild recession at the time. But because of all that spending, that recession was one of the shortest lived recessions that we've had. And then spending has come down a little bit since then. So the government have done a reasonable job in some ways of managing the economy. But, as Fed Chair said, there is actually a long-term and unsustainable situation with the debt that's been building up. So we can see here just actual figures. Now, I just want you to remember here that since 2022, we can see here government spending has actually been increasing and increasing. But I may need to move on a couple of charts before I come back to that. But just remember that the government spending is continuing to increase. And here's the government debt. And you can see how it's, how it exploded, obviously, during the COVID crisis. And the debt has continued to climb. 33 trillion, that was Q3 2023. I understand it's now $34 trillion, which, as we say, is mind-boggling. So I did mention to you that some of that debt, though, is actually, there's foreign-owned debt and there's debt owned by the government as well in the US. And so that's why potentially that if they don't count the US held debt, then it may be more sustainable than people originally think when they look at the figures. So here's the Fed funds rate. Now, this is the one I wanted you to remember. If we remember, government spending from 2022, spending has increased dramatically. And we can see that's at the same time as interest rates have been increasing. So it's a bit strange because one of the reasons they increase government spending, and especially spending on infrastructure, is to try to stimulate the economy. Yet at the same time, they're raising rates dramatically to try to slow the economy, to try to slow inflation. And so I'm not quite sure what their thought is behind this, but they're spending more and more. And this, by the way, is probably not the best way to stimulate economic growth with government spending. You actually prefer to have private growth, private spending, growth in the private economy and business to be stimulating the economy. And when you spend government money on infrastructure, you actually want it to spill over into private sector. That's when it becomes most effective from an economic point of view. So, the 118 trillion or billion, spending bill they're talking about, you need to look at the breakdown. I mean, I know you guys know exactly what it's going to be spent on. Is that going to translate into actual growth in the private sector? And if it isn't, then it's probably not government money well spent. And again, you guys would know better than me about how it's being spent and whether it will spill over to the private sector. So perhaps we can just have a quick look at that or discuss that later. Here's quite an interesting one. And it's, I have said that I believe we're headed for a recession this year. A lot of people are now talking more and more about a soft landing for the economy. And I still don't believe that to be the case. And we'll just revisit a couple of charts just to show that I think the recession is definitely coming. But we're seeing fewer and fewer hiring announcements in the US. In fact, they're now at the lowest 2-month period on record. And that's telling us that whilst the job figures have been really good, moving forward, they're probably not going to be as good because it's one of the sort of more leading indicators. It's not waiting for actual jobs data to deteriorate. It's actually looking at the hiring announcements, which is more of a leading indicator than the jobs themselves, which is kind of backward looking. So it's telling me that the likelihood is that the job situation will deteriorate in coming months in the US. And that's what's going to precipitate the recession, but initially precipitate lower interest rates, which may be good short term for risk assets. So let's just jump into those risk assets. Here's the S&P 500. We've looked at this. Basically, wave 1 we measured, transposed the measurement to wave 2, and it gave us the exact termination of wave 3 at 1.618. Then we've got a wave 4, and we're working towards the end of a wave 5. Now, we can't tell exactly where it's going to end. There are ways you can do it. For example, you measure from 0 here right through to wave 3, transposed to wave 4, and wave 5 is often 0.618 of that whole measurement. That's just one of the tools that I use. But the other thing to note here is, and telling us there's a potential turn coming up, is that we've got bearish divergence, regular bearish divergence, where we mentioned that, and Bruce knows this very well. That we're looking at.
But if you wouldn't mind running it over, just I feel like we one more time. I feel like it's always good to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most predictive indicators there is, and not many of these TA indicators are predictive, but this one is very good, and it shows that basically, if you draw a line between the peaks on price, the actual peaks on price here, and you can see that line is an ascending line. And then you look at the actual corresponding line on RSI or any other oscillator, but RSI is one of the best, I think. So from the exact same point, you draw from the peak on RSI to the corresponding peak here on RSI, and you see this one is declining. So you've got an incline in price and a decline in RSI, and that's called, in this instance, it's called bearish divergence, and it's warning of a potential turn down in price. Now, we've actually had bearish divergence running for some time, and it can continue, but it is just warning that at some point in the not too distant future, we're highly likely to see a turnaround in price because of this bearish divergence. So that's a kind of early warning sign that wave 5 may be coming towards completion. And the story behind it is obviously that the prices are increasing on declining momentum, really, declining volume. In fact, you can see the volume has actually been declining, especially during this last phase. This volume measure here in the middle, you can see the spikes of positive volume during this uptrend. The volume has actually been decreasing as the trend has been increasing. And so volume is dropping off and momentum is dropping off. And so a lot of the big players have probably taken their profits already in the S&P. And this is just retail players driving the price higher because things are still looking good. And as long as things look good and prices are going up, people think, I want part of that. But the big players who know what's really going on behind the scenes have probably cashed out earlier on. And that's why the volume has disappeared or disappearing from this market. But price is still continuing higher. So this is actually, again, just a closer look at those multiple bearish divergences. And each one of these peaks, you could actually draw a line on the RSI. You'd see declining RSI and increasing price peaks. So there's multiple instances of bearish divergence here. And you can see at each one of them, by the way, price did turn. If you drew the line from here to here and the line, the RSI there, you can see short term, we got a decline. Again here, every time, by the way, we get a divergence, we get a decline in price. So I do believe that we will get more of a decline in price, again, in line with these other declines coming up soon, especially as we're getting towards the end of wave 5, which should see a substantial turn down. So these are just warning signs, indicators that are very predictive and they're proven to be predictive. So we'll just jump into Bitcoin. We looked at this yesterday. We've had an amazing run, absolutely fantastic. And we'll look at that target price. I've zoomed into it again today on another chart we'll look at. But we can see again here, we had bearish divergence here, and look what happened to the price. That just shows you that these things are kind of predictive. Here,
look at that, huh?
Yeah, amazing. And then here we have something called hidden bearish divergence, which is another kind of indicator, another divergence. It's telling you that the price is likely to continue lower on Bitcoin, but over this very, very long term, it's not quite so predictive. So we've got a very short-term indication in here that again is showing, we'd have to look on a shorter time frame, in fact, to see this. I'm showing the weekly. You need to look on the daily to see this drawn properly, because you need to draw it from candlestick bodies, not these wicks. But it would show you that short term on the daily, we have once again, like this signal here, we have regular bearish divergence coming in around here, around these sort of levels. We may push a bit higher, but predicting a turnaround is likely ahead for us. So here's a bit of a zoom in on that chart. And we can actually see RSI. When it goes above this 70 line, RSI is said to be overbought. And that's telling you once again of probably an imminent downturn in price. And once again, we can see these green candles really pushing the price higher. and the actual volume candles here going down. So the price is going up on decreasing volume, although we haven't yet seen RSI decrease. So we haven't yet got any divergence at this scale on the 4-hour on Bitcoin. But there are some warning signs. And I did measure the wave 1 from here to here. This is the wave 1 from this B to this number 1 here. I measured that and I transposed it to the start of this wave 2. And 2.618, which is another beautiful Fibonacci number. The 0.618 is the golden ratio. So once again, that gave us the target for wave 3. Now we've yet to see whether it turns around this level. It may push higher. It can go. We've got other Fibonacci numbers it can go to, but this is a strong potential turning point. And then a potential down in wave 4, then a final up in wave 5. So let's just take a quick look. I've drawn a long parallel channel, and I just do this best fit for the prices, and you can see it touched here. Whoops, let me go back to that. It touched here at the bottom, price touched here, price touched up here, price touched up here. So at the moment, price is being constrained within this parallel channel, and it's often the case within any price charts. It doesn't have to be crypto, stock market, any price charts. They often fall within channels. And what we see here is potentially a wave A up. It could be wave 1 or wave A, but in 5 waves: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you can break those down within each of those impulsive waves. Again, you'll see 5. So just looking at this 5th wave, you can see it quite clearly. Wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and wave 5. So even within the waves, you see waves within waves. So that's 5 waves up for wave A. We've got an A, B, C down for wave B. And then once again, we've got a wave 1, wave 2, wave 3. That was up to that 2.618 level. Then wave 4 down and wave 5 higher. Potentially, maybe we're at or near the top currently on Bitcoin. We'll obviously need to wait and see. But from a risk reward perspective, I think we're getting close to levels that the market may turn. But this was my, actually, it's probably not the best one to show. But on this scale, on the 1-hour chart, I told you there was no divergence on the 4-hour. But if we look at the short term, there is some divergence where we see here again, higher highs on the price and correspondingly lower highs on RSI. And again, we can see, whilst we had some strong volume on this big green candle, volume has been dropping off as we push higher. So we may be due for a short-term turnaround in Bitcoin, but we may still have higher to go. And actually, the target doesn't show on this chart, but the target is still where, if I just go back, if we looked at measured this A wave using a Fibonacci measuring tool, transposed the B wave here, then 100% of it would actually take us to about that 49,900 that we discussed. So that is our upside target at the moment for Bitcoin, 49,900, maybe the 50,000. That would be quite an important psychological level, that around 50,000 might be quite important. And then just finally, I think we'll take a quick look at Solana, because it's been an amazing one. But potentially, again, we actually touched the same previous price that was achieved back in December. The high price was achieved there, and we've retested that high price, and actually it was rejected at that level there, and price so far has come down from there. So maybe we have an A wave, an A, B, C, B wave. Maybe we've got a C wave down to come, which would mean that this is just corrective. If it's A, B, C, it's just corrective. So we still have more highs to come above this level in the future. But short term, I think we've probably had enough upward movement in the market. We're probably set for a bit of a pullback. Nothing absolutely major. I don't think the market is about to crash or anything like that. But I do think we're due for a short-term pullback. And I think all the signs are out there. So that's it for today on the Market Watch, and happy to look in and discuss any particular things. But I just thought it was encouraging to say that, when you look at some of the things with the US economy, the warning signs are out there, but also is not necessarily unsustainable. Don't forget, it's in nobody's interest for the markets to crash. Something may happen geopolitically which would cause it, which is outside people's control. But there's a lot of debt held by China, and people talk about them dumping debt. They can't afford to dump the debt because America are buying a lot of their goods. They're actually helping to keep China. China economy is desperately slowing. They don't want the economy to slow. They want America to keep buying their goods. They want the American economy to stay strong. So the whole world is sort of interrelated and interdependent. And so it's in China's interests, and it's in everybody's interest, really, for America to keep booming. And obviously it's in America's interest as well, especially during this election year. So there's a lot of interest in trying to keep this market going, but it won't keep going forever.
I hear you. Yeah. So as you were saying that, it was interesting. Putin had some interesting. I'm just trying to pull it up here. Something interesting to say about the U.S. dollar as well. Let me just here it is. Let me just share my screen here. He talks about. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's amazing how there were such health scares about Putin. There's talks of him having cancer and all sorts, and yet during that 2-hour interview, he said, "Look, he's looked really healthy and vibrant and strong."
I mean, that was my biggest takeaway. I haven't been able to watch the whole thing, but my gosh, you heard me at the top of the hour talking about it. In a time where it's hard to get information, it's hard to get good answers for things. Here's a guy that sat down for 2 hours and answered whatever questions that he had, and he answered them all looking and coming off very, very smart. That was my takeaway. I mean, whatever you want to say about the guy, he's bad, he's good, whatever you want to say about him.
But you also have to remember as well, things really aren't black and white, and
exactly.
We're also we are swayed a lot by I say the media, but not just the media. I would say by news that's put out there. I wouldn't necessarily blame the media for that. And I know we've been reading this morning about some terrible, horrendous corruption and things within Ukraine. We're always pointing the finger at Russia, but Ukraine isn't whiter than white either. So there's.
I was headed over there when we had our coup, when we basically staged the coup over there with Hillary Clinton and everybody else. I don't think either side is like you were saying. Either side is really without fault for sure. But it was very interesting, and this is what he had to say. Putin says sanctions affected the U.S. dollar being the reserve currency. He says, and this is me paraphrasing it. He says the inflation is currently acceptable by the citizens in the U.S., but that they won't stop printing. By using the U.S. dollar as a tool of political power, it caused countries to stop using it. Do you agree? Now, it's better when he says it because he makes a few points, and then we can talk about it here.
Remedied.
Well, let's just give one example: the U.S. dollar, which has kind of united the world in a lot of ways, maybe not to your advantage, but certainly to ours. Is that going away as the reserve currency to become the universally accepted currency? How have sanctions, do you think, changed the dollar's place in the world?
To use the dollar as a tool of foreign policy struggle is one of the biggest strategic mistakes made by the U.S. political leadership. The dollar is the cornerstone of the United States power. I think everyone understands very well that no matter how many dollars are printed, they are quickly dispersed all over the world. Inflation in the United States is minimal. It's about 3 or 3.4%, which is, I think, totally acceptable for the US. But they won't stop printing. What does the debt of $33 trillion tell us about? It is about the emission. Nevertheless, it is the main weapon used by the United States to preserve its power across the world. As soon as the political leadership decided to use the US dollar as a tool of political struggle, a blow was dealt to this American power. I would not like to use any strong language, but it is a stupid thing to do and a grave mistake. Look at what is going on in the world. Even the United States allies are now downsizing their dollar reserves. Seeing this, everyone starts looking for ways to protect themselves. But the fact that the United States applies restrictive measures to certain countries, such as placing restrictions on transactions, freezing assets, etc., causes grave concern and sends a signal to the whole world. What did we have here? Until 2022, about 80% of Russian foreign trade transactions were made in US dollars and euros. US dollars accounted for approximately 50% of our transactions with third countries, while currently it is down to 13%. It wasn't us who banned the use of the US dollar. We had no such intention. It was decision of the United States to restrict our transactions in US dollars. I think it is complete foolishness from the point of view of the interests of the United States itself and its taxpayers, as it damages the US economy, undermines the power of the United States across the world. By the way, our transactions in yuan accounted for about 3%. Today, 34% of our transactions are made in rubles and about as much, a little over 34% in yuan. Why did the United States do this? My only guess is self-conceit. They probably thought it would lead to full collapse, but nothing collapsed. Moreover, other countries, including oil producers, are thinking of and already accepting payments for oil in yuan. Do you even realize what is going on or not? Does anyone in the United States realize this? What are you doing? You're cutting yourself off. All experts say this. Ask any intelligent and thinking person in the United States what the dollar means for the US.
Pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah, very interesting. There's, obviously he's got his own axe to grind, but there is a lot of truth in it that it has been America's most powerful weapon. And when you use your most powerful weapon, it becomes less and less effective the more you use it. And that's effectively, I guess, what Putin is saying, that, they've used the weapon. Russia and others and China are looking elsewhere for trade and ways to settle their trade and not use the US dollar. And that will, that has actually begun now and will probably continue. So, yeah, America should use this tool with as much restraint as possible, I believe.
Yep. You talked about it as well. This is a pretty interesting clip talking more really about that. And I'll play this one real quick. And then, I was like, I got home at 11:30 or something. So I was just putting together, there's so much. There's really, it is a fascinating interview. I said, okay, our trade, he says, our trade, China, Russia is what he's talking about, is very balanced and mutually complementary. Back in 1992, the share of the G7 countries, which obviously US is G7, countries in the world amounted to 47% of that's the share of the trade. Okay. Right. Okay. Whereas in 2022, it was down a little over 30%. I'll read that one more time just because I messed it up. Our trade is very balanced, talking about Russia and China, and mutually complementary. Back in 1992, the share of the G7 in countries in the world economy amounted to 47%, whereas in 2022, it was down to a little over 30%. He goes on to say that U.S. sanctions are counterproductive. Do you agree? So this is a shorter clip, but it's worth listening.
So you said a moment ago that the world would be a lot better if it weren't broken into competing alliances, if there was cooperation globally. One of the reasons you don't have that is because the current American administration is dead set against you. Do you think if there were a new administration after Joe Biden that you would be able to reestablish communication with the U.S. government? Or does it not matter who the president is?
I will tell you, but let me finish the previous thought. We, together with my colleague and friend, President Xi Jinping, set a goal to reach $200 billion of mutual trade with China this year. We have exceeded this level. According to our figures, our bilateral trade with China totals already 230 billion, and the Chinese statistics says it is $240 billion. One more important thing, our trade is well balanced, mutually complementary in high tech, energy, scientific research and development. It is very balanced. As for BRICS, where Russia took over the presidency this year, the BRICS countries are, by and large, developing very rapidly. Look, if memory serves me right, back in 1992, the share of the G7 countries in the world economy amounted to 47%, whereas in 2022, it was down to, I think, a little over 30%. The BRICS countries accounted for only 16% in 1992, but now their share is greater than that of the G7. It has nothing to do with the events in Ukraine. This is due to the trends of global development and world economy, as I mentioned just now. And this is inevitable. This will keep happening. It is like the rise of the sun. You cannot prevent the sun from rising. You have to adapt to it. How do the United States adapt? With the help of force, sanctions, pressure, bombings, and use of armed forces. This is about self-conceit. Your political establishment does not understand that the world is changing under objective circumstances. And in order to preserve your level, even if someone aspires, pardon me, to the level of dominance, you have to make the right decisions in a competent and timely manner. Such brutal actions, including with regard to Russia and, say, other countries, are counterproductive. This is an obvious fact. It has already become evident.
Another just fascinating clip. We need to talk to each other more. That is the main takeaway that we've all been saying for months now. We need to talk to each other. If we don't talk to each other, then we're not going to get anywhere good. We have to talk to each other. You saw when Dennis Rodman went over to see North Korean guy, I mean, as crazy as that was, and as crazy as Dennis Rodman was, it opened the door, and of course Trump went over there and then crossed the divide, and then we didn't have any problems with the guy. And now, I mean, God knows the guy's just shooting off. God knows what he's going to do, And Biden has not spoken to Putin since before this Ukraine war. And but the point of that was obviously he went on, but the sanctions and that effect on the U.S. dollar and the de-dollarization. Actually, the sanctions, although of course they, like you say, I'm sure they have an effect. They have sped up the de-dollarization, and because they don't want to have their money in U.S. dollars because they know that they can be seized, frozen, and everything else. People think, oh, it's all whatever. But they all have a serial number on them too, guys. And they have a serial number and they have a strip. If you think that strip, what do you think that strip does? I'm sure they can track that strip.
And then let's see what happens with CBDCs. I mean, we're going to be, it's gone quiet. Not heard anything about CBDCs recently, but, they're going to be launched this year, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. So
people aren't going to want to be using their CBDCs. The boogeyman, as I call it, because of course, like I said, the U.S. dollars are all tracked anyway. But whatever, I think obviously it'll be worse. But very interesting, Matt. It's always a pleasure to have you on here. I guess tomorrow we round out another week. It's great to have you on, have the market watch and everything else, and
pleasure to be here. Thanks, David. Thanks, Bruce. Always a pleasure. Really. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Catch you next week.
See you tomorrow.
God willing. Bye.
next
So,
week, bro.
I'll tell you, it's a crazy situation that we have here. And, Texas has continued to shore up the border there along the way. There is the way that, and we talk about money, of course, this is Impact Money. And of course, we have the Porter Brothers show as well. And that airs at 11 a.m. there in Texas. And of course, 6 a.m. across the East Coast. I'm sorry. Impact Money is 6 a.m. across the East Coast, 5 a.m. Porter Brothers is 11 a.m. in Texas, 12 noon across the East Coast. But that's it's a big focus because the money, the people that control the purse strings control everything, and I think that's becoming more and more obvious. The Senate pushed this almost $100 billion package through just yesterday. I think the House, it was impossible for me to keep up over the last few days, but I'm pretty sure the House has to pass it now too. But the fact that the Senate has already approved it, now you take it to the House, you can imagine the wrangling that goes on for $100 billion. If you don't think there's a little to the ribs here and there, and hey, buddy, I know what you did last night. You better do this or else, then you're fooling yourself. Because that is definitely how things get done all around the world. Okay, it's not just Washington, but that's how stuff gets done everywhere. And so once it's passed the Senate, now it just needs the House approval, and you get that thing into an up or down vote. And we got basically a split down the middle House. They got rid of the gay Republican from New York. I have nothing against gays. I just don't know how else to describe him. He called himself Jewish, but I don't think he was. But what was his name? He lied about all kinds of stuff, so they kicked him out. But he was a Republican. He would vote Republican. So now we have a situation where then if that bill comes up for a vote in the House, it's hard to stop it because you have 200 and something Democrats, of course. And that is just a fleecing. That's a fleecing. I mean, guys, we talk about the tax rate. I played that video yesterday. It's worth playing it again. Don't look at how much you're getting taxed. Look at how much the government is spending. I don't even need to play the video. I can just tell you. You look at how much the government is spending, and that's your real tax rate. Okay? So you're going to get taxed. They're expecting for 2023 to bring in $1.5 trillion in federal income tax. But they spent, according to the Treasury, so it's probably even more, but they spent $6.13 trillion in 2023. Okay? 1.5. 6.1. So they spent 6.1. The government always has a balanced budget. Saying that it's not balanced doesn't make any sense. It's always balanced, just doesn't look balanced to you. It's always balanced. They print the money. And so that means that your tax rate is what they spend, not what they take in. Because they just dilute your dollars in order to pay for it. So your tax rate, if they're taking in 1.5 and they spent 6.1, is effectively 4x. 4 times what you're paying once you include the inflation and the dilution of your dollars. So that's what I always say. Is it tea party? Tea party time? Who wants to come to my tea party? Anyway, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Again, we'll be back on in about 5 hours with the Porter Brothers show, 11 a.m. there in Texas and Louisiana, 12 noon on the East Coast here in the U.S., and I think 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, anyway, whatever. Go to atcostmetals.club, sign up for the club, buy gold, silver, palladium at cost. Go to atcostbitcoin.club. Sign up for KuCoin. Get real Bitcoin, not the fake paper ETF type. Real crypto. Okay? And you can buy it right there. We love you guys. David, you're the man. Nice to see you, brother.
See
Cheers.
you next week.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.